G'day folks, it's Mark here from the ETFtracker show and ETFtracker, and we are doing another ETF analysis series of videos. So in this one, we're looking at a pretty cool ETF, if you don't mind me saying. It's all to do with video games. And yes, there are all of these different types of ETFs that track different thematics, and this is definitely one of the coolest ones, I think. So it's called ESPO, ESPO. It's kind of like esports. ETFs have cool ticker names, that is for sure, and this is one of them. But this one is interesting because there's a lot of great content out around this. So we're going to take a look at the numbers and the metrics. But before we get into that, let's take a look at, there's this podcast, and it's actually out from the ASX. So the ASX is the place that you trade on there, but it's also the place that collects all of this information. And we had Martin Din, who is in the investment products team, and he crunches all the numbers and provides that to the public. And we use that information to go into our app. So it's a nice circle of life going on right there. But he's got his own podcast, and it's pretty cool if you haven't checked it out. It's called the Ideas Exchange. And so the ASX puts that out. They've done a lot of stuff on ETFs and other types of investment products. But I think 2 episodes ago, or maybe 1 episode ago, they did this one here talking about ESPO. So they spoke to Van Eck, and you can see the interview here. We'll just play a little bit. If it plays.
We'll be covering the video gaming and esports industry. For those that are not too familiar with esports, it essentially describes the world of competitive, something quite interesting about esports. Do you know?
ESPO is our vectors, video gaming and esports ETF. I loved your intro in terms of it's up over 100 mil.
Yeah, so they've got Damon Gosen on there from Van Eck, and we'll get Damon on the show in a couple of weeks' time as well, and we'll talk more about this kind of stuff and some very interesting ETFs from Van Eck. But yeah, just thought you guys should check that out. But we cover the numbers and stuff here, so let's take a look at that one. We looked at NDQ last time. So let's type in that ticker, ESPO. All right, and let's go to full screen, of course. So this one has less of a history, and that's cool, but it's only been around since late last year. So you can see here that the net inflows, it had 16 million of net inflows in September. So that's pretty good. And it's 110 over its lifetime in terms of total FUM. So we can see that there. Let's just jump to that, because that's one thing that's been pretty interesting. That's had a lot of money that's flowed into it in its short period of time. So the latest month was 6.8 million in terms of net inflows. Total net inflows 106.5, but its total FUM is 110.5. So they kind of have a little bit of a mismatch there, but it all leads into the FUM being that 110. Who knows where it will be when we get the September numbers? Might be close to 115 or so. So strength to strength. And then we'll take a look at the main factors around it. So we've jumped ahead a little bit. So it tracks a benchmark called the MBIS Global Video Gaming and Esports Index. So if you are interested in that, then you can simply Google that and see what that one is all about. And especially where an ETF might be newer and you're interested in how it might perform. Well, an ETF tracks, not always, active ETFs are different, but if it's a passive ETF, it tracks a benchmark. And if it tracks a benchmark, then that benchmark should have some history there. So you can take a look at that one. We can see it's got 27 holdings. We'll go into that. And it says here that it gives investors exposure to a diversified portfolio of the largest and most liquid companies involved in video game development, esports, and related hardware and software globally. So that one's, it covers the whole range of kind of companies. So let's see what's under the hood. Does it fit your expectations? We can see it covers Nvidia, Tencent, Advanced Micro Devices, C Limited, Nintendo. We know Nintendo, Activision Blizzard, NetEase, Take-Two Interactive. So there's some gaming companies and some chip companies there with Nvidia. We can see what that profile kind of looks like, the weight. So highest is 8%, goes as low as 0.62%. Now the top 10 holdings here make up 62% of the ETF. So that might be something of interest to you. Okay, and we'll take a look at performance. So we can see it's been positive. It's 12.3% cumulative over its lifetime. It's had some positive months, a few negative ones at the start of this year when there was a bigger sell-off. July wasn't so great for it, but it had bounced back in August, and we'll see what happens in September. And this is total returns, not just the price returns. So it takes into account distributions being reinvested, dividends being reinvested. Okay. And we'll take a look at transactions. So how is it being traded and transacted? And we can see that it's averaging around 2,000 trades a month or just under. So the latest month with 1,897. And we can see here that transaction volumes are around 1 million for that. And then transaction value is around 15 million. So yeah, it's still early days with this one, but it looks quite positive. It looks like it's a popular ETF. And so that's why you look at the size in these transactions, just to see how popular an ETF is. It shouldn't put you off necessarily from investing in something if you really firmly believe in it. But these are just the stats, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with them. We're just presenting them here. And then the bid-ask spread, and that has been slowly decreasing. So there's this slight decrease here, and spread is important to see decreasing because you want to see lower spreads. Okay. This one it does look quite high in terms of the liquidity. So you want to see high liquidity, and it does look like it's been getting lower there, but that's because it was starting when ETFs first start out, they have abnormally high liquidity right at the start. And then it settles down into a certain kind of level here. So 13.5%, which is higher than some other ETFs that we've seen in terms of their liquidity. So high liquidity, low spread, it does make for a nice kind of formula for seeing that ETF has good tradability. Okay. Can be traded easily. And then in terms of distribution yield, this is not necessarily an ETF that you're looking to for distributions because it's only 0.27% and it's only had a record of distributions in the last couple of months. So not much there. So the distribution yield figure, we've got a definition for that, and it's based on the last 12 months of distributions. Okay, so that is something to consider there. We don't have the dollars and cents. You've got to go to the ETF provider, but you can do that because we've got the fund website linked here. So rather than having to Google it, you can be at ETFtracker. You can look up your ETF, and if you're interested in more details, then we definitely do recommend that you go and look at further information there. We can see that management expense ratio is 0.55%. Now, just on these links here, we've got the link to the fund website, and that shows more information from Van Eck. We've also got a link to the Google Finance page, and that will show you more up-to-date pricing. So if we take a look at that one, we can see how it's gone, say, over the last month. Okay, so it's been a little bit negative, down 3.64%, but that's not exactly from the start of September to the end of September. So that's worth noting there. And it also doesn't take into account distributions. So that's what we've got in terms of the total returns on the ASX and Chi-X data that we collect. So that's this tile here, so worth a look at. But anyway, if you're interested in esports, this is, still early days for this one. Worth looking at. Take a look at the interview that the ASX did with Van Eck. And if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we will be adding more to the list. See ya.